Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Nerdletes podcast. I'm your host Jesse, and today I'm in a bit of a different locale because my first episode on the road. Today I'm here in Florida, on location, not at a stadium. That would be cool though. Just on vacation, but today is the day after the first week of the NFL season has just been put in the books, and I wanted to start with my recap series. Or here on Nerdletes, we'll be talking about the previous week's NFL action, and obviously we still have Monday Night Football tonight between the Ravens and the Raiders, and we can obviously talk about that if something of significance happens. But this will mostly be focusing on yesterday's action and a little bit from Thursday, the opener, because that was the opening game, so we might as well talk about it as well. So you'll probably already know based on my shirt, and if you've seen previous videos, that we're gonna have to talk about some uncomfortable things with the Green Bay Packers. That anyway, we'll get to that. But anyway, there might be an echo. I don't know. This is my first video here with the new equipment, with a new computer. So if everything was real smooth, I got the new mic. I've used it in some of the videos, but this is the first one on video on screen that I've done. I've done a couple with Greg on some of the other nerd stuff that was just the audio and not the visual. So now we got the whole setup. But I'm here in vacation on Florida. On vacation in Florida for this first episode, our first episode of the NFL season. So as you know, previously I did do my predictions and preview for this season, but now we're finally starting to see how that starts to pan out. Week 1 of the 2021 NFL season began, and let's see how things started. Let's move ahead to our first game. And to open us up, we had the Buccaneers and the Cowboys, the opening night last Thursday. So we have the defending world champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the Dallas Cowboys, who were able to get Dak Prescott back from injury after that really horrific ankle injury. Believe me, it was not something for the squeamish to look at, and that would be me. There's some ugly injuries that are hard to look at, and that was one of them. So this is his first game back, and the Cowboys, who had a pretty prolific offense for the first few weeks of the last season before he went down, but their defense mightily struggled. So how will they fare against Tom Brady and the Patriots? And looking at this game, they actually fared pretty well. Their defense picked up the pace a lot. The Cowboys played overall a lot better than I felt that they would against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who seemed to outclass them, in my opinion. I know a lot of people are high in the Cowboys because they're the Dallas Cowboys, but I was not super high in the Cowboys. Like I mentioned in my preview video, I think they're going to win the division, but I don't think they're going to be like a top tier NFC team. They're just going to get in because the NFC East is a fairly weak division. Maybe not. We'll see. We'll talk about that a little bit later about how the other NFC East teams did. But for the Cowboys in this game, it was a close game. As you see by the score, it's a 2-point game. They came down right to the wire, a last second kick. And I definitely think that when they left about a minute 30 on the clock, when the Cowboys were able to get that field goal at the end, and it's like, well, you give left Tom Brady a minute and a half, things didn't look good. And sure enough, Tom Brady went down the field and got him field goal range, and Ryan Suckup was able to hit the game winner, and so the Bucks ended up winning in Week 1. So the Buccaneers, I actually thought their defense was a little bit lacking. They were a very strong part of their playoff run last year, especially if you look at the Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs. They really were able to clamp down on Patrick Mahomes in a very potent offense. But the Cowboys played really well. Their offense was able to move the ball, both in the pass game and the run game. And the Tampa Bay defense didn't look like it was quite up to snuff. And maybe it's just week 1. Obviously, week 1, a lot of people don't play in the preseason, so this is their first game action in a long time. The fatigue can be a factor, as we'll talk about obviously later on in another game. And this is just the Cowboys just looked a lot better than I thought they would, especially from the defensive side. Obviously, we knew they had some talent on offense, and the Cowboys, at least from week 1, look like they could be a competitive team moving forward. We'll see how that goes. Like I said, the division doesn't seem very tough, but we did get some surprise performances like with the Eagles, and we'll have to see how they can keep it up. And I think the Bucks, obviously, they won, and they're still a threat. I don't think they're going to end up being a top team in the NFC. Well, the top team in the NFC. I think they're going to win the division, as I previously stated. So, obviously, it was a good win, and it was a good game for opening night. I thought it was a lot more competitive than I thought it would be. So, obviously, it was a pretty good game, but the Bucks were able to come out on top. Oh, It hurts to even look at that. Um, it was not a good game to watch. So, I can only watch so many games live, and obviously I was able to watch this one. It was nationally televised, even while I was down here in Florida. But this was just a rough one. The game was being played in Jacksonville, Florida, due to hurricane affecting New Orleans, so they're out. I believe they said on the telecast for about a month they're going to be on the road, whether it's a home or away game. I don't know who they're. I know they're practicing at TCU this next week. I don't know where they're playing their game because I believe they're playing the Carolina Panthers, and I think the Saints are supposed to be home, but I'll have to double check that. But this was ugly. The Saints, I won't take everything away that they did play pretty good, but the Packers made the Saints look really good. They made Jameis Winston look really good because Jameis Winston didn't really stuff the stat sheet for yards and everything, but he did throw 5 touchdown passes, so it made it look really bad. The Packers had chances to get the ball in the end zone and they just failed. Their best shot being at the start of the third quarter. They were down 17-3. They could have scored a couple times. They had the 1-and-1 where they got the possession at the end of the first half and the possession at the start of the second half. They could have really built some momentum. And of course, they threw an interception. Aaron Rodgers did not have a good game. And this honestly reminded me a lot of the Tampa Bay game from last year. And looking at the Packers over the last couple seasons, they tend to not lose a lot, but when they do, they have really got these teams that just seem to just overpower them and beat them up really bad. They're really ugly losses. If you look a couple years ago, that was the 49ers game that really stands out as they just got run over. And of course, that was a team they played in the NFC Championship game. And last year, it was Tampa Bay who was able to really beat them up in the regular season. And of course, that's who they got stuck with in the championship game, although be it not quite the same circumstances in the championship game. Now, as you know, I don't think the Saints are even going to make the playoffs this year. So I don't think that'll be the same case this year. I think the Packers will meet in the playoffs. Because obviously the entire NFC North lost this week. So even if the Packers lose a couple more games than they did last year, I still don't think they're in any threat of losing the division. But looking at the Saints, their offense obviously played good. The Packers defense was tired. They were sluggish. They just were not in it. They were like nobody was in it, offense or defense, because obviously they scored 3 points and they gave up 38. Jameis Winston, they made him look really good. They didn't get any pressure on him to force him into interceptions and turnovers, which is what he's prone to. So if you feel like if you get more pressure on Jameis Winston, that'll lead to getting more turnovers. The Saints defense did play pretty good, and their defense didn't seem to be as affected by the heat and the fatigue, and maybe the Packers, they hadn't played enough yet the first game, and they just were sluggish, and they didn't look good. So I don't know. Obviously, that would be terrible if that played on further on in the season. The Packers have mostly the same starting groups, a lot of the same players from the last couple seasons, except for obviously the offensive line that they lost Corey Lindsey, the best center in the league, and David Bakhtiari was out, so they had to slide Elton Jenkins out, their guard to tackle, and they had a couple rookies on. So that, but a lot of the guys, their top good guys, came back, and so this still, based on the last couple years, should still be a good team. But they just had a really bad day. I don't believe the Packers are going to be this bad going forward, and I don't believe the Saints are going to look this good going forward. So I think this is a little bit of an anomaly game. Not that the Saints won't win games, but I don't think they're going to be able to do this very often. And even next week, looking at how Carolina's defense play, I don't think they're going to have the same kind of success against Carolina next week. But the Packers and Saints, a really weird game. It's a really ugly game to watch. Not fun and not enjoyable from a fan. Maybe if you're a Saints fan, it was probably very enjoyable. But just as a casual fan or a Packers fan, it was not a fun game to watch. And I expect a lot more from the Packers going forward. But I will admit they were terrible yesterday, and they better get their act together if they want to get back into the Super Bowl with a lot of questions surrounding Aaron Rodgers, and that that could be a factor. How has the offseason affected it? Maybe it has. We'll have to see. They're going to be playing next week on Monday Night Football against the Detroit Lions, so we'll get a test against the division team, even though they might not be that good. That they'll be a good division matchup because division teams match up well against each other. The other game I was able to catch yesterday was the Steelers and the Bills live. So the Bills I thought were favorites in this game, and so I was surprised that the Steelers were going to come out on top. Obviously, the Steelers had a good record last year, but like I've stated, the Steelers I felt were very overrated, who didn't really have in many big wins last year over good playoff teams. Just a couple, really. So they're playing a top team in the AFC, who in my top three in the AFC, who made it to AFC Championship game. And the Bills, they had some questionable calls with play calls and different decision making that by Josh Allen that I didn't think was very good. And the Steelers defense picked it up, got some turnovers, and was able to get some pressure on the Bills offense, and they were able to capitalize. But obviously, it was basically a one-score game, and that really big difference maker was on the special teams side of things when they were able to get that block punt for a touchdown, and that was really the difference in this game. That was in the second half that really swung the momentum, and the Bills were not able to recover, even though they did get a late score. I believe it was a field goal, so they could cut it to within a score game, but they were not able at the end to get through with it, and the Steelers were able to sneak out with this victory. But I don't think it's hard to say with week one with how teams are going to play going forward because they could be an anomaly. Look at Jacksonville last year; they won the opener and lost the last 15. So obviously, week one doesn't necessarily mean anything. But like the Packers, maybe not to the extent, but the Bills didn't look quite up to what they're used to seeing them last year. And I did think the Bills were going to suffer a little bit from last season. I didn't think they were going to be quite as good, but they still top three in the league, in the AFC anyway. So the Steelers, they're in a tough division. The Browns played good. The Ravens we have yet to see, and the Bengals got a win. So the Steelers are going to need wins like these to keep pace in the division. And so that's really going to see a good test for them was this week one, and they were able to win it. So I'll give them credit, but I still think they're overrated. I still don't think they're going to be able to get very far in the AFC and a very tough division. But maybe they'll get a playoff team. I don't know. But obviously the Steelers played well enough to win this game, and the special teams really the big defining moment, as I mentioned in this one. So moving on to the Sunday night game, the Rams and the Bears. We got their first look at SoFi Stadium with fans, so that was interesting. And Matthew Stafford, first game there with the Rams, and Andy Dalton starting for the Bears. We even got to see Justin Fields. So the Rams' offense looked really good, in my opinion. Matthew Stafford seemed to have good control of the offense, and they got a lot of good bombs. That Cooper Kupp play was really impressive. The very long, deep touchdown was blown coverage by the Bears. And their running game looked really well. So the Rams' offense really looked, what we would expect from a Sean McVay offense. So very potent. And their defense was able to pick up the pace and get pressure on Andy Dalton and the Bears. So Andy Dalton didn't play bad, though. I still feel within the first few weeks they're probably going to shift to Justin Fields. It just feels inevitable at this point, and almost was a little surprised that he didn't start week one. Justin Fields came in and played a little bit. He had a pass and the run was for a touchdown. So, and you could just tell when he was in the game those couple times, the offense was excited. They were into Justin Fields. Not that they necessarily are down on Andy Dalton, but he just brings this energy to that offense, you could tell. So I don't think he's going to be sitting out too long, and I think that Andy Dalton's probably going to be on the bench sooner rather than later, just because of the energy that you could tell that Justin Fields brought to them. But the Bears defense, they had moments, but they were not enough for the Rams. And as I said, I think the Rams are my second team in the NFC. I think they're going to win this very tough NFC West division, all of whom got wins yesterday. And Matthew Stafford definitely seems to, at least right now, be an upgrade over Jared Goff. And he kind of fits what Sean McVay wants to do in that offense, which is to be able to throw those deep bombs. But they have a good running game to balance that out because the Rams need that running game. They can't just be a pass-happy team because the Rams are best when they can run the ball. And on top of that, when their defense plays good, they're a very tough team to beat. And as we could see last night, they were able to beat the Bears pretty handily. The Bears didn't feel out of it. It wasn't like a super beatdown, but you could definitely tell the Rams were in control. and it definitely looks like a top tier team. The Bears, I don't have high expectations for, but like I said, definitely look for Justin Fields to probably start within the next few weeks, I would imagine, just to get a bit of an energy boost. Because like I said, Andy Dalton played well, but the energy and the thing that he brought is going to lead the Bears to a little bit more victories, my guess. So what was another good game was the Chiefs and the Browns, and for most of this game, the Cleveland Browns were, I felt in charge of this game. They had the Chiefs on the run for a long time, and the Browns gave this one away. They had their chances, they had leads in this game, but they weren't able to stop Patrick Mahomes and the offense from coming back, and then some turnovers in the game, late in the game. We had the turnover in the last drive by Baker Mayfield, the interception, and then the punt snafu at the end where they got them right in the red zone. And the Chiefs obviously are a tough team to beat, but the Browns seem to have their number. Like, they came very close to being in the playoffs last year, so I thought this was going to be an interesting matchup to see how the Browns do. The Browns looked really good, and they really, solidified my thoughts that they could be the top team in the AFC North, even over Baltimore or Pittsburgh. So the Browns show that they have the talent, they have the capability to win against any team, really, because the Chiefs were the class, one of the classes of the NFL. So if you can go toe-to-toe with the Chiefs, you can go toe-to-toe with about anybody. So the Browns look to them to have a good season, but they're going to have to be able to finish games. That's where they were not able to pull this out. They played well in so many areas, but they weren't able to close this game out. Special teams and offense, defense, they all had problems on the ball late in the game that they need to tighten up going forward, because you can't let a team like the Chiefs come back from this. But the Chiefs, they struggled a little. I think people have been game playing a little bit better, especially after watching that Tampa Bay game. But they still have Patrick Mahomes. They still have a good defense. And they still have weapons. So the Chiefs are going to be a tough team to beat. And the Chiefs are not someone you can count out like that. So, but they can't, they don't want to be relying on having to come back either. So the Chiefs obviously have their own work to do, but both in different areas of the game. They were able to get the win in this, but the Browns are very close. They looked very good. So I'm interested to see how they do this season. The Chiefs obviously are favorites for a lot of people, and I've said I think they're going to be in the Super Bowl until an AFC team proves they can beat them. Because the Bills have been good in the past. The Browns have been good. Titans, they lost. The Steelers, they haven't played the Chiefs. So until these teams can prove they can beat the Chiefs, I have no reason to believe that the Chiefs can't make it out. And games like this just show why I think the Chiefs are at the top of the AFC. So this goes to a couple teams who I thought were going to be really good this year, the Arizona Cardinals and the Tennessee Titans. I heard, yesterday listening to people talk, I don't think people were as high on the Cardinals as I was. People were mentioning how Seattle and the Rams and even the 49ers were the tops of this division. And no one's really mentioning the Cardinals. And like I mentioned, I think the Cardinals are one of the top teams in the NFC this year. I think they're going to be a wild card just due to the fact that I think the Rams are going to win the division. But the Cardinals, I thought coming in were going to be a really good team. And even though they might be a lower seeded team, they're going to be a good record team. Probably that first wild card in, and could win a playoff game or two. And they definitely showed it yesterday. Another team that I thought would be good is Tennessee. They were my number 2 team in the AFC, and they just pretty much beat up on the Cardinals. Derrick Henry was never able to get into this game. The Cardinals defense made sure of that. They pressured Ryan Tannehill. He got sacked. He fumbled. So the defense of the Cardinals did their job, and they played really well. And then you look at the weapons they had. AJ Green, they brought over from Cincinnati, played a really good game. DeAndre Hopkins had a really good game. And Kyler Murray was playing pretty good. He's become a solid quarterback, and looks like he's taking those next steps to being one of the, better quarterbacks, young quarterbacks. We've seen a lot of good young quarterbacks over the last few years, and Kyler's definitely showing he's someone to be considered in that bunch. And, I think the Cardinals are going to be a tough team. And they went into Tennessee, 1 o'clock game on the week 1 to play a really good team, and they really trounced them. I feel like this score wasn't even, like, it felt more, it didn't feel as close as the score made it, I should say. And the Cardinals looked really good. They looked really good, and I was surprised. So many people were down on the Cardinals. Not that they were down, but they didn't really include them in the top teams, and I really thought they were going to be good, and this just proved it. And Tennessee, based on how I had these teams ranked, should have been a really close game, but the Titans just didn't look in it. Their defense, I didn't notice a super big glaring hole, but they were able to just get chunk plays from the Cardinals, and they just got to improve in different levels in the secondary and in up front because they were able to get the running game and the passing game going against that defense. And they're going to definitely need to pick up the pace. They may be able to not be in a super powerful division. Houston won, but they were the only team to win that division. I don't expect Houston to win a lot of games, but the Titans can't be off their guard. Like I said, I think they can get an easy division win based on what I saw yesterday and what I've seen from these teams and their offseason moves. But they definitely don't need to be taking the division lightly by losing games like this I feel like they could have won. But they didn't play up to the form. They've kind of dropped a little bit, so we'll have to see if they can pick it back up heading in to the next couple weeks and see if the Titans of the old come back, if Derrick Henry can get back on track, and if Ryan Tannehill can get back and play to the level that he's shown he can play. But the Cardinals looked really good, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they do this year. They missed out on the playoffs down the stretch last year, but maybe this year I think they're gonna be much better. So we have the new, pretty interesting game, the Panthers and the Jets. A couple of retooled, rejuvenated teams. The Jets with basically complete overhaul of the coaching staff gone, brand new coaching staff, a lot of new players, but it's a very young team. We got our number 2 draft pick Zach Wilson, who did play good, and he showed signs of what the Jets' future could be. But I feel like this is kind of the Jets' near future is going to be a lot like this. They play well. There's energy. You can tell they're heading in the right direction, but they can't always get the win. It was a tough game for them. The defense of the Panthers played really good, and they were able to stifle the Jets a lot, get some turnovers, get some sacks. So this was it was a tough test for week 1, but I think as a rookie he played pretty good, and the coaching staff did some good things, and the Jets showed that they can compete, but I don't think they're going to be able to win many games. They're just really young and really inexperienced. So they may be close games, but I don't feel like they're going to be quite a good team, and I still think they're probably going to be in the bottom half of the AFC. But they show that they at least are moving in the right direction. As for the Panthers, they decided instead of going with like a rookie or another proven starter or keeping people like Teddy Bridgewater to go with Sam Darnold, which if in a sense is like getting, just a rookie who maybe played to his senior season almost is about what they're doing. Sam Darnold was in a really bad situation in New York and never really got the chance to show what he could do to shine. And now I think he's in a really good situation to show that, and he played pretty good. He's not going to lit up the league yet, but maybe he'll have some games like that. But I think for right now, he fits what the Panthers are doing. So they've rebuilt, but they still have talent, and I feel like they can compete for a playoff spot this season. Their defense was a lot better than I was expecting them. They got a lot of pressure on the Jets, and their defense is a lot of why they won this game, was able to stop the Jets. And their offense needs to pick up the pace a little bit. Christian McCaffrey had a good day, and that's good to see him healthy again because the Panthers are definitely going to need him to be healthy moving forward if they want to win games. But the defense being back up to a good level is a very good sign for them because that's been a thing when they've been good is their defense is kind of what leads that team. And, they always had Cam to be kind of the wow off factor on offense. So players like Christian McCaffrey, Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore are going to have to pick up and to be able to be those playmakers. And I think as long as Sam Darnold plays well, he takes care of the football, that they're in a good position to win some games this year and to be in that contention for one of the wild card spots and maybe a pretty decent record along the way. But definitely an interesting game. Two teams that we didn't really know what we were getting, but they both look like they have bright futures, and I just think the Panthers are a little bit further along in the process than the Jets are. But I don't think the Jets are going to have to wait too much longer to be a relevance once again. So now let's just kind of look at some overview. I want to talk about a few games that I felt stood out, but let's take a look and talk about some of these other games. The Eagles and Falcons I didn't really pay much attention to this because I I'm personally not a fan of these teams, and I didn't feel like the Eagles were going to be that good. I wasn't really thinking that the Falcons were going to be good, but everyone always is high in the Falcons. Like every year, it seems like someone's high in the Falcons, finally being able to put it together. And I feel like the Falcons have that talent a lot of times, but they never seem to quite play up to the talent that they supposedly have on their team. And they just didn't look good in this game. And the Eagles were able to look a lot better than they were. And the Eagles were the only team in the NFC East to win a game. I don't think that's going to be a par. I still feel like the Cowboys are going to be able to win this division, but the Eagles showed me that maybe they could win some more games than I thought they would. I don't think they're going to be, when they play some tougher teams, I don't feel like they're going to be as good, but definitely a lot better than I originally thought they would be. Texans and Jaguars, we had our first look at Trevor Lawrence, who had moments, but he definitely showed he was a rookie with the turnovers and some of the decision making with his throws. It's not college anymore. You dominated when you're Clemson and there's a good talent, but you're not in college anymore. And even though the Texans, I don't feel like are a really good team, they're pros. This is a lot different than a college game. You're in the pros now. Every team has a chance to win. And the Texans played good. Tyrod Taylor played good. He's shown in the past he can play good. I don't know if he's a long-term answer, but he can definitely win games and get good statistics for you from time to time. I don't really know what's going to go happen with Deshaun Watson, if we're ever going to see him, or if they're going to trade him, or what, off the legal stuff, the off the field stuff, I don't know. But like I said, I was not high on the Texans this year. I thought they were going to be in the bottom. I thought the Jaguars were going to improve, and it didn't really show in this game, but I feel like the Jaguars will win some games this year. Maybe not a lot, but they'll win some games. And the Texans, when they play some a little bit better competition, I don't feel like they're going to be able to put up the kind of numbers that they did. The 49ers and Lions, the Lions were able to make this close. They were down like 24 points in, I want to say, it was the last couple minutes of the game, and they were able to cut this game to a one-score game, basically. And Jared Goff, he played pretty good, but he just doesn't have the weapons that he did in Los Angeles. The defense is not quite up to the stuff, and the 49ers exposed the Lions' weaknesses. The Lions are rebuilding, and even though they have a decent quarterback, the rest of the roster is just not quite ready for a playoff run. They did play well, and he was able to get back at the 49ers in the end of the game to make it closer, but you let a team put up 41 points on you like that, and chances are you're not, be able to win too many games. But the 49ers look like they're improved. Jimmy Garoppolo played, and we don't know if maybe they're going to end up putting in Trey Lance eventually. But for now, Jimmy Garoppolo's in the game, and the 49ers look a little bit more like they did a couple years ago, but maybe not quite as good. Like I said, I think that I still have them finishing fourth in the division, and they could maybe compete for a low-seeded wild card. I don't think I'm as high in the 49ers as other people. Like a lot of teams, I feel like they haven't played a really good competition, and I really can't take a lot of stock into week one games. I just feel there's a lot of teams that are rusty, that are not got to the swing of things, and then once they start picking up play as the weeks go on, they're going to get better. And some of these other things they were able to get exposed are going to get tweaked and fixed upon. And so I think the 49ers are not going to have this potent of an offense and this potent of a score to when they're playing other teams later on down the stretch. The Bengals and the Vikings was a good game. I don't like the Vikings, obviously. So I was happy to see the Bengals win. Joe Burrow came back. Jamar Chase, the rookie, looked really good. The former teammates at LSU. And game went overtime. It was pretty long into overtime, and I was really thinking that the Bengals were going to end up, or the Vikings were going to end up tying. I really thought that was going to happen, but they were able, they drafted that kicker. They put out that tweet about that's why you draft a kicker. And it does. You need a kicker to win the game, and that's what they did. The Bengals went out and they won this game. And I thought the Bengals were going to improve this year. I don't know if they're going to quite get to playoff contention, but they looked pretty good in week one. And the Vikings didn't look that great. But they were able to keep in this game. And the Vikings, I feel like, are going to drop off a little bit this year. I feel like there's a lot of things going to affect that team that maybe even outside of the locker room, outside of off the field is what I should mean. The Bengals were able to get this win, and they earned it. And I look for them to continue to improve. Seahawks and the Colts. The Colts, I felt like were going to drop off. They weren't going to be quite as good as last year. And the Seahawks, they're really good usually at the beginning of the season, so this doesn't really surprise me they were able to do this. But I think the Seahawks might get tripped up a little bit down the stretch. But they played pretty good, and Russell Wilson played good. Obviously, he's going to be good statistic wise, and he's going to try to compete for an MVP. But it's really the question of whether the rest of the team can come together and pick up the pace. The Chargers and Washington, we actually got to see two of the rookies of the year last year with Justin Herbert and Chase Young. So it wasn't a very high scoring game, but it was pretty good. And Ryan Fitzpatrick was hurt, and Taylor Heineke had to come into the game. And I honestly was surprised that Taylor Heineke didn't get a better consideration for the starting role. He played really well in the Tampa Bay wildcard game, and I thought that a lot of that could have, along with him being in the offense for a little bit longer, would have made him a better choice. But I think, with Fitzpatrick getting hurt, that Heineke might have won his way back into the starting lineup. He played pretty good, and I would expect to maybe see him going forward. I think, in my opinion, he gives the Washington the best chance to win moving forward in a division that's up for the taking. With the Cowboys are obviously a little more talented, but they might not be winning too many games more than the Washington football team. They really need to get a name. So the Washington football team need to take advantage of getting wins like this, because I feel like they're going to be in contention for that division. But losing games like this is not going to help their cause, especially when teams like Dallas takes an L. The Dolphins and Patriots. The Dolphins had just had the number of the Patriots. Even when Tom Brady was there, they just had the number. And Mac Jones played. It's a new era in New England, obviously, but the Patriots are still expected to be a pretty decent team. I even said I think they could make it into a wild card spot. But the Dolphins were able to come in, and they were able to go to Foxborough and win the game. And like I said, they just had their number. Division teams just seem to do that, and the Dolphins have just always kind of had the Patriots' number. Usually they can at least split with the Patriots, and the Dolphins showed that they have some talent. And they obviously not quite up to what they need to win all the time, but they were able to just pull out this victory. And then Denver and New York, the Giants, the first part of the game I thought they were looking pretty good, but the Broncos came back, and Teddy Bridgewater played really good. Like the Broncos, I had no expectations for the Broncos. I thought they were going to be a complete bottom feeder this year, but they played really good. Teddy Bridgewater had a really good game, some really good passes, some really good throws. He's moving around the pocket. I was very impressed. I was surprised by the Broncos, and I don't think they're going to be quite the laughingstock I thought they'd be. So the Giants didn't play as good, and that's not good for them. But the Broncos, I was really surprised by how well they played, and they definitely look like they could be a lot better than I thought. So it was definitely a surprise. It was a surprise. But anyway, that was just kind of a recap of week 1. And we obviously have one more game tonight. I'm going to make a prediction for the Las Vegas-Baltimore game, and I think the Ravens can take them. It's going to be interesting to see the Raiders. Like I said, the Raiders were I feel very stagnant. They feel like they didn't go up or down either way. I feel like they're just average. And the Ravens, if they can go in and win, which is what I'm thinking they'll happen, then that's, what's expected. And if the Raiders can pick up on offense or defense and really shine in one of those areas, then maybe that'll change my opinion. But right now, I feel like they're very stagnant from last year. Being about a 500 football team is where I think they're going to stay. But I do have a lot more expectations for the Ravens, and I expect them to win this game. But that was week 1. There were some good games, and there were some really bad games. I watched the bad games. So anyway, very interesting week 1. A lot of teams did things I didn't expect. They played better or worse than what I thought they would do. And I'm definitely interested in seeing going forward. We have an extra week this season. And like I said, this is week 1. Fatigue comes into factor. Guys getting back into football shape. Not playing in the preseason. Getting the football speed. Some teams are better equipped and getting back to where they were. And I think the next few weeks are really going to determine and start to see the people separate from the good and the great teams. But for week 1, it was definitely interesting to see who won and who lost. And I'm looking forward to seeing where the rest of the season goes. But thank you all for watching. Let me know in the comments, what did you guys think of week 1? What teams were you surprised about? What teams are you pulling for this year? And who do you think is going to be the best teams in this league? Let me know. Share all your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching. If you like this content, please be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps to get the channel growing. And I thank you all for watching. I'll see you again soon.